Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection from this show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom, I think.
And my name is Adam.
I don't know it's real anymore.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. And remember,
what the hell happened there, George?
glitches in the Matrix are real.
We've just entered the fourth dimension.
We're always in the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is time.
We are prisoners of the fourth dimension.
Okay, fifth dimension.
The fifth dimension is Keith.
Sixth dimension.
Yes, Keith. Gotta love Keith. What a guy.
Yeah, what a dimension. Kelly McDonough is writing in happy birthday, Adam, on the chat. Yes, you might notice our lovely co-host and good friend Adam has turned, just judging by the facial hair, I want to say like 45?
45.
45.
Yeah, going on 70.
Mm-hmm.
And look, just getting the woodsman beard back out in honour of the lockdown. We got to a solid 2 inches last time, so this time we're going to try and get to that 3rd inch, really sort of go 110%, and just do it for the boys and get that 3rd inch going on. So
get that 3rd inch for the boys. You heard it here first.
I was trying to think of a sporting analogy, but it just ended up sounding like a sex reference.
How long did it take for you to grow your last isolation beard? Like how much of lockdown did it?
Well, basically the whole of lockdown. So how long did we have? About 6 weeks. So about 6 weeks.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess we'll see.
On.
Judging by the numbers we've been seeing in the past few days, because we're on day 5 of lockdown today.
Days?
Yeah, Wednesday was the first day of the week.
Days don't really mean anything anymore to me.
We're 5 days in, and we've already had a couple days of 200 plus new cases, which are records for the entire pandemic for here in Victoria. So,
number one, Victoria, number one.
Setting goals, like the good PB. But so with this rate, it'll be more than 6 weeks. So Adam,
the scary thing is that it's all community transmission now, and they don't know.
Yeah. That
where
thing we
it's
didn't want
coming
to happen,
from.
it happened.
So
I don't know where it's coming from, but it might be horny security guards.
Just the old horny boy, as the old patient zero. Or the patient after patient zero, patient 1.
Not only did that security guard fuck a girl, but he also fucked the entire state of Victoria and perhaps Australia.
So I feel he owes us breakfast. At least.
Minimum.
At the very least.
You have to buy the entire state breakfast. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, and in return, we all won't call him.
Don't call back.
Yeah, just don't call back.
I'd like an apologetic text saying, why he did what he did.
Why he did what he did. I mean, nice. God, can you imagine being that guy? Like that security guard right now, seeing all this, like,
but I think it was
the memes,
him,
the mockery. No, but after reports come out of hotel security fraternizing with the quarantined individuals and all that sort of stuff, and then obviously the think pieces, the tweets, the memes, and all that sort of stuff. If you are like that one or more individuals who are responsible, can you imagine just like sipping your morning coffee and just seeing like yet another headline, like in some kind of like pedestrian TV-esque headline or whatever of like horny security guards fucked Victoria or whatever, just being like, oh boy,
how do you think
I'm that guy?
The next job application? What do you do? You have to sit down with the interviewer and they're like, okay, look, so you've got some great qualifications. Just if you like to list off some of your previous experience, that'd be great. It's like, worked on the coronavirus lockdown. I see here you are only working for about 2 weeks. Why was that? 2 weeks.
That's the duration of the incubation period of the virus, you see. So they needed to have us in 2-week shifts. Nailed it.
No reason.
Covered it well.
Crushed it. So we're all being encouraged to wear masks now.
Yes.
Yeah.
The advice has changed, which I guess I see why it's changed, because they originally had the advice of like, hey, look, you probably don't need to be wearing masks. Mainly so as we all didn't just go panic buy all the masks and then all the doctors, nurses, and whomever were without them. But now, thanks to community transmission, it's probably a good idea.
And then after they said that, all the panic buying happened with the masks, and they've now sold out.
Exactly. I say that that was the advice to avoid the panic buying, but people are people, and people are garbage, and of course they continued to panic buy. Milk seems to be the big thing being panic bought in my area right now, which is odd given how fucking perishable it is. Like, you can't hoard milk. You can hoard that long life stuff, but you can't hoard like your 2 liter of like Coles milk.
You could freeze a carton of milk, couldn't you?
I guess you could. Yes, but can you imagine defrosting that? Like, fucking, whenever I defrost a chicken, it starts like half cooking it. So I can't imagine what defrosting milk is like.
I just imagine a 2 liter icy pole of milk. That's all. Just like crack open the case and then just start licking it.
It's a hot day. Milk was a bad choice.
Yes. So yeah, that's fun. I don't know if toilet paper's disappeared again. I don't know if we're going to start entering the toilet paper wars.
Yeah, so in my area, the toilet paper has definitely dropped off pretty precipitously. There was a moment when I was doing my shopping this week where, running low on the TP because I didn't know we had to compete with all the fucking insane people again for toilet paper. Seeing footage on the news of people running out with a big 24 Quilton pack of toilet paper, dumping it in the car, turning around, going straight back in for more TP. And I'm like, no one loves toilet paper that much. Surely that can't be a real... Anyway, so I'm at the checkout. I've had to pick up some baby wipes. That's what it's come to. So,
shit, really? Are they flushable baby wipes, George?
They are not. So we're going to flash back to... Sorry, go on.
The ones that say they are flushable aren't flushable.
Not flushable, technically.
It's one of the biggest scams of our time.
Are you going to enjoy your fatberg that's about to come crawling out of the toilet?
Yes, I insist that the next fatberg that is discovered is named after George.
Well, anyway, you'll be very pleased to know that it didn't come to that. What I ended up doing is I saw a gentleman at the checkout with toilet paper. So I'd gone to the toilet paper aisle. There was no toilet paper whatsoever. I obviously needed toilet paper. Purchased the baby wipes instead. So I murdered him. I drank his milkshake. So I saw him with the toilet paper as I was checking out. So I made eye contact through the plexiglass to the lovely girl who was serving me. And I said, please, sir, I want some more. And I was like, is it okay if I run back? And she's like, go, son. Go for your life. So run down to the toilet paper aisle.
And don't stop till you get there.
Run, Forrest, run. And without exaggeration, by the time I'd gotten there, they'd obviously restocked as I was checking out, and the amount of toilet paper there had already been depleted. So it was like the last half a dozen packets of 10 that I was able to grab. And I hate the panic buying thing. I hate it so much because it's like,
it drives me nuts.
We were fine 3 weeks ago when they started easing up on the restrictions, and people, were behaving themselves, and we're all able to eat through this crisis. No one went without, and we made it through. And I was like,
enough food. Finally,
order is restored. Sanity has restored itself. Oh, they're panic buying again. Yeah. So that was disappointing. But so yeah, toilet paper, obviously chief amongst people's concerns. I don't know how they thought we made it through 30,000 years of human history up until this point without toilet paper. Somehow we managed. I don't know, but
rag on a stick.
I wash myself with a rag on a stick.
Rag on a stick.
A literal shit stick.
But of course, we can all blame Dictator Dan.
Oh, God.
Being in this situation,
Dan Andrews.
Can't we? Oh. It's not like people spent 3 months yelling at him to reopen everything because everyone's struggling and the economy's tanking, and then they ease up a little bit and suddenly we're in lockdown 2.0 and suddenly that's Dan's fault again. It seems like he's either doing too much or not enough, and I'm sick of it.
It is literally an unwinnable position for a politician. I saw this great video of an angry Lebanese guy basically just being like, "Bruz, what do you expect him to do? What would you have done different, bruz?" And I was like, this angry Lebanese guy has a point.
Yeah.
100%.
Because I mean, there's so much like there are like warranted points of criticism, like we were talking about last week with the tower lockdowns of those housing commissions. That has been done quickly, like rushed, poorly, cruelly, and is terribly communicated. And like the more we learn about it, the worse it gets. But so yeah, definitely big point of criticism to say, hey, you fucked that up.
Yeah.
But in all the other aspects, like I'd say he's doing a good job. Like he's been everyone's angry, disappointed dad.
I
and
think
that's what we need right now.
Dan Andrews, the Premier of Victoria, is doing as good of a job as is feasible given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Like when members of the Victorian government get on TV and talk about their health advice, I'm reassured that they are competent people doing their best. Now, as you said, the stuff with the towers, there has been some sort of like conflicting reports as to exactly, what's going on there and how that was handled. I think they're probably going to do a review, which they've already spoken about. And I think, some aspects of that response will be found to be lacking. If, random unverified images from social media are anything to go by. But certainly like, you're right, Tom. It's an unwinnable situation. They criticized him for not opening things up soon enough. Then we've opened things up pretty cautiously, more cautiously than the other states.
Much more cautious than other states.
And we've had an explosion in cases, which is also somehow Dan Andrews' fault. And it just kind of makes you think, like, why would you want to be Premier? Why would you want to be Prime Minister? Like, why would you want the job? Because it's unwinnable.
You get a sweet pension, George, is the answer to that.
That's true. If you are in it for long enough, you do get a sweet retirement.
Yeah, you also get a decent pension as a backbencher, and you also don't have several knives sticking out of your back at any given time. So,
Andrew, the way this is probably exemplified no better is with a few articles that Andrew Bolt wrote over the course of the last few weeks. There's one from like, I don't know, 4 weeks ago or something. And it's like,
good. I can't wait.
Andrews isn't opening things up fast enough, basically. And then
it was saying like government overreaction or something. Being like, we clearly like this wasn't as bad as we thought. Like way overreaction.
And now he's flipped his tune, and now he's ragging on Dan Andrews. And like the other thing, I think the best meme that I've seen, which encapsulates this, is the guy on the bicycle, and it's like he gets the stick and he puts it around the front of his wheel, and it's like it says people in Victoria not following restrictions. Obviously, the stick is in the wheel, and then they fall off their bike, and then they sit on the ground crying, and it's fucking Dan Andrews' fault.
100%. It's a convenient scapegoat to have for sure. Fact is, in a country that prizes people's individual responsibility and individual freedoms, like we've not been talking about the responsibility of individuals to all keep up social distancing. Like we have, Dan Andrews basically gets on TV every day and says, thanks everyone for those of you who are cooperating, for helping with the effort. Thank you. We love you so much. Like you're doing a great job. And then please social distance, please wear a mask. We're not going to make you, we're not going to enforce it. But this is the problem is you have like, say it's 1% of people who are just, for whatever reason, like total, rebels and aren't going to pay attention to any of the guidance. That's enough to fuck it up for the rest of us. And we've seen what's happened, the absolute explosion in Victorian cases, doubling in the space of a week. Going from a handful, a couple of dozen to nearly 300 a day in the space of, just over a week and a bit. That's what happens when, you allow that kind of, we talk a lot about freedoms. We don't talk a lot about responsibility. You have a responsibility as a human being to respect the life of your fellow man and behave in accordance with these restrictions. If you're not going to do that, it's just
a really impassioned speech that was happening there, and it's now turned into digital garbage.
As George has dropped off the face of the planet.
You got to do your best.
How are you, Adam?
I'm great, thanks, Tom.
You're great. Yeah, you're great.
We're going so well. The bit rate was fine.
Bit rate was good. Oh god.
He's still going because it's still looking.
He's still going. See, that's the thing. I'm wondering whether he can hear us making fun of him.
Yes.
In the background and us just having our little chat. Whether he knows or if he just spent the most important 5 minutes of his life just gone.
Oh, I think he's finished now. Is he still going?
Oh God.
Nah, he's gone.
No. All right.
Once the lockdown came into enforcement the other day, which made me quite happy. And it was police, and they were obviously enforcing a lot of the stay-at-home restrictions. And one of them was quite clever, really. Actually, they got a hot tip from none other than KFC.
From some ambulance people, I believe, in KFC.
In KFC, so
yeah.
There you go. And they worked out that there was an order that was like, it was a big order, right? It was for like 16 people, a big order. Like they've spent.
I think it was 2 people ordering 20 meals was what tipped them off.
I mean, I've been hungry, right? So, but you wouldn't eat 10 meals each. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that seems excessive.
What's the threshold? Like, when would you go, like, seeing if you saw a bunch of, like, let's imagine, like, the kind of, like, 20-year-old guys you see on a night out, like, of, like, the dickhead haircuts and, like, funky shirts and whatever, and being like, oh, yeah, I'll have X amount of, like, 2-piece feeds or whatever.
I'll have the dinner box, thanks.
Yeah, like, how many... What's the threshold between they're just pissed and having a big night and doing the whole like, oh no, I bet you can't finish a pounder or whatever, or where they're clearly covering for a giant hidden party that is in breach of the law? I wonder what number would have made them not go, fair enough.
I don't know. I mean, I reckon if you just ordered like a single family feast each, like that's in the realm of like fat shit. Like that's, that passes the bar. But yeah, when you order if you're ordering separate zinger combos, 20 of them,
and like
then that's
10 each.
suspect.
Yeah, it's a fair bit.
No one's going to order 20 separate zinger combos.
I mean,
themselves. They just package it into a feast.
Don't ever say no one. Because there's definitely been nights in my life where I could easily have been in a state where I ordered 20 Zinger Burger combos late at night after a few daddy juices and not necessarily had a firm grasp on what was happening. It's entirely possible.
You walk in and go, I'll have everything on the menu. Thank you.
That
One with everything.
But yeah, so some ambulance drivers were sitting in a KFC in Dandenong here in Victoria, and they overheard 2 gentlemen ordering these 20 meals. And
Would we say gentlemen?
Well, and they thought, that's odd.
Seems
and
like
I
a
think
lot.
the article said something of like that they spoke to the 2 guys. I don't know quite like what was said or anything like that, but clearly enough for that once these 2 guys left, they called it into the cops and said like, hey, license plate, whatever. These guys ordered all this KFC, and they got a police tail on them, which followed them back to their townhouse, where down the back of the house, sort of hidden away from the front, so it was, I guess, not obvious to people in the outside world to rat them out, 16 people were just chilling, waiting for their KFC.
This is at 1:30, so they're only over the threshold by an hour and a half as well.
Oh, was this at 1:30 in the morning
on
the
Wednesday?
night? Oh,
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shattered.
So clearly this house party must have started pre-lockdown kicking in. What, did they think it was like birthday bouncer rules? Where it's like, no, you haven't gone to bed yet. You're not 18. So, you're not allowed to come in. I don't care. It's 1 a.m. on the actual day on your ID. What, they think, no, we haven't gone to sleep yet. Lockdown hasn't kicked in, mate. Obviously.
It's like a nightclub where it's like, oh, we can't let any more people in, but once you're in, you can be there till 3 a.m.
I did wonder that.
Last drink, so I'll close the doors. We're good.
You got people that are staying out, presumably, because I, probably along with quite a few people, went and had dinner with my parents at their home.
This is why we have lockdown too, George. People
hey. So so went to go just us and them, just me and Gracie and my parents, to have dinner at their place, sort of thing before things get locked down. But the traffic on the roads that night was mental, and I was like, oh, people are literally just going to fucking party it up, like last day of freedom. before shit gets locked down again.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is, we're going to see the effect of that in 2 weeks of people being like, just got to get it in.
Part of me wondered, like, what was the effect on, like, what's it called? Tinder and Bumble and all those things of just people just being like, yo, you up?
Seriously, though. Are you up?
We've matched. You like, you seem nice. Great Simpsons quote in your profile. But seriously, tonight's the last night before anyone's allowed to see each other. So, DTF.
Get it here?
Yeah. Are we doing this or what?
That party that you were speaking about, $26,000 worth of fines.
Yeah, because like each person was fined the 1,600 and whatever. So yeah, it's good get for the taxpayer.
It's great. It's been great it's actually we've raised millions of dollars in fines.
It's
in Victoria.
probably useful because the state government is not going to have much, if any, revenue to speak of over the next couple of years. It might just be funded solely by coronavirus violations.
Yeah, solely by people breaking the rules.
That new metro tunnel will be just paid by the tears of coronavirus breaches of quarantine.
We'll have to come up with a great name for the tunnel. It'll have to be like a coronavirus pun of some sort. Smarter people than me can come up with it.
Just
leave that to the members of the department.
Yeah, it's cooked. It's what I find is really interesting is that a lot of the people that I saw on Instagram, like people I know that weren't taking the sort of social distancing measures seriously like 3-4 weeks ago, are also the same people I see on my social media feeds, like being really upset that the lockdown is happening again, lockdown 2.0. And I was just like, bro, I've seen pictures of you like flying to Byron and like hanging out and touching all your mates with your arm around each other.
Kissing Chris Hemsworth,
making out with Chris Hemsworth, all the fun stuff. But like, seriously though, it's like it's weird to me that it's the same people, the ones that are whinging about, the lockdown are the same ones that I all saw with their arms around each other, not taking things seriously, not social distancing, going out, hang out in places and posting on their IG stories that they're going out and like, hitting up 5 different places in a day. And it's like,
I guess they're not sad sacks like us, George, where we're all like, you know what an ideal day is? I get up at 10, I hop on the computer, suddenly it's nighttime, dinner, sleep.
That was me yesterday.
They're the ones that are like, like, what? You mean I can't go out to all the funky brunch places? Like, I mean, and I love a good brunch. But,
don't get me wrong, I love a great brunch.
A funky brunch?
As well.
I love a funky brunch.
Yeah,
funky brunch.
Yeah, it's Mark Wahlberg's new restaurant.
Right. Marky Mark and the Funky Brunch.
I get you. Don't get me wrong. I like socializing. I like being out. I think the biggest loss for me is like I don't get to like spend one-on-one time like having dinner with a friend or two, or like hanging out with my parents, or that's the thing that I really miss. Like I wasn't going and chilling at the club and going to the gym and like that's none. I was doing none of those things. Well, I mean, granted, I don't go to the gym anyway because it's a lazy piece of shit. But like I don't understand these people that are like, great restrictions. It's always like famine or feast. It seems like with a lot of people. Same with the panic buying. It's like either everyone's really uptight, fucking get away from me, cunt. 6 meters away, don't fucking get. I'll fucking buy all the toilet paper in the world. Fucking get away from me. Or like making out, shaking hands with people on the street. It's like, why can't we do just like reasonable restrictions, social distancing, mask wearing, washing your hands, and just like have some degree of normalcy in our lives? Like, why does it need to be either everything's fine, let's go completely back to normal as if nothing's ever happened, or freak out mode, or let's stock up on ammo? Like, I just don't understand that.
There'll be a lot of like, I guess, psychologists or whatever could probably phrase this better than me, but like there'll be the thing of as soon as you tell people they can't do something is when they really, really want to do it. Like that's the sort of I've been feeling, right? Like, when things were normal and going to work and all that sort of stuff, like, I would probably just be going to work, coming home and watching telly with my partner or like, you know, playing a game with you guys online or whatever and all that sort of stuff. Like I wasn't constantly going out to galleries or the movies or like to brunch every weekend and all that sort of stuff. But now that I can't is where I'm sort of like, oh man, I miss all that sort of shit. Like,
just want to
really
see
go
some
to that
fucking
right
art.
now. But I wasn't like taking advantage of all those opportunities when I could. But that's only because I can't now that I think like that. So yeah, there'd be all these people who are like, as soon as you tell me that I can't, George, that I can't go to the fancy like pop-up putt-putt golf place and have my mimosas and like fucking smashed avo, that's exactly when I want to. So like my freedom, George, freedom. I'm gonna go have my smashed avo and sink a few holes.
I just can't imagine the My Freedom guy is also the guy that's just like, guys, I just need to go down to the NGV and smash a couple of Rodins. Like, I just need to, I need to see some fucking Monets already.
George,
it's just driving me nuts.
My freedom to have my deconstructed latte, right? Cunt?
You can still get your deconstructed latte. It has to be takeaway.
You have to take it away in 3 parts.
Out with one of those like wooden boards that's got fucking milk and a coffee shot and stuff, just like oh no, and then falling over.
Yeah, doesn't work for the tasting platter.
Yeah. Anyhow, shall we move on from coronavirus related topics to talk more about
just one last thing
elsewhere in the world? All right, one last hurrah, bring it home, George.
One last thing is masks. So yeah, yes. We did sort of touch on that briefly before, but would urge you to wear a mask. You can make them yourself in your home. There's some great videos online as to how to go about doing that. As you said previously,
people on Etsy selling them. I've seen.
Yeah, I saw like
there's an easier way to at least get ones that are doing something. Like they're not medical grade or whatever.
Reach into my go bag quietly. Hang on.
He announces, therefore not quietly.
I mean, I've got some M95 masks left from when we were doing some painting last year, so I suppose I could use that if it worst comes to worst. But yeah, the point is, because the advice early on was to preserve stocks for medical workers and things like that, we weren't advised to wear masks. But like when cases started spiking a week ago, I was tweeting about it and I was like, hey, should we be talking about wearing some masks now, or what's the story? And really, up until only the last couple of days, has it become a priority? Adam's.
I haven't actually got a mask. I've just got a scarf thing.
It's not not even close to a mask. It's you're just wearing a piece of cloth.
But like, does that help? That helps though, right?
It's probably better than not wearing one. It's
better.
The thing.
It's
like,
literally
there's so many where it's like, will it prevent you getting the disease if I just breathe directly into your face? No, not really. But it's better than you not wearing one.
I probably should have got one. It was when I got the go bag was when the bushfires were happening, and then like all the smoke masks, and all the little ones, they all just
that's the kind that I've sort of got. I've got a leftover like bushfire-esque one, but since that was a while ago, it's probably not good anymore. So yeah, maybe getting. I was trying to find a stylish like one covered in sharks, just so I felt cool when I went out, but I couldn't find one, so I just settled for black.
So
black goes with everything.
Matte black everything. So wear a mask. Don't go outside. We're back in this for at least another 6 weeks, if not longer. So we'll see how we go.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun.
But things are going well elsewhere.
Well,
sensational.
In the gaming world, which is just about the only world which is still kicking on without interruption as it normally does because it's all virtual, there's been a lot of interesting movement in regards to the US Army's Twitch chat. Would you like to give us some more detail on that, Tom?
Oh, yeah. This just happened recently. So
they
the
have
US
a Twitch
Army,
chat. That's
the US Army has a Twitch channel because I think actually the US Army has a dedicated esports team.
It
so
does.
I think like people, people who are members of the US Armed Forces are part of the esports team, and I assume they play stuff like Call of Duty and whatever. So it wasn't something that I was personally like that across, but I was like, okay, cool, they have their own esports team. Good for them. Anyway, so, people being in lockdown and stuff like that, I suppose they're doing a lot more like just Twitch streaming with the team and stuff like that. So they recently started streaming on Twitch, so playing something like Call of Duty, but it got interesting because all the people in the comments decided, as, people on the internet are wont to do, people like to find ways to either troll who's playing and all that sort of stuff. Everyone was deciding just to ask the streamers what their favorite US war crimes were.
Well, no,
just like that. Some of them were saying stuff like that. Others were being more like, professional, like professional's the wrong word, but like more civil or like intelligent about it. Like more sort of being like, no, seriously, hey, the US has done war crimes. Like, what do you think of X, Y, and Z? Whilst other people were doing like, yo, what your favorite $$ W4R crime, like, trying to get around filters, like if they started putting word filters on to ban like war crime and stuff as a phrase and all that to get around it. And so they just started banning people who asked about US war crimes.
But it started a little bit earlier than that. And I think the reason I think this story is interesting is I had no idea that any of this was a thing. So I was telling my fiance Gracie about this, the woman who should be my wife, thanks coronavirus. We're asking, so I was like, it's just one of like, it's right.
We've all got the thing that we're really bitter about coronavirus ruining,
and
yours is very much justified because it was your wedding.
I got a handful of things, believe me. So anyway, so I was explaining, I was like, okay, so the US government has an esports team and they've got a Twitch channel, and she's like, Twitch channels, like it's video gaming stream live. She goes, why does the US government have a Twitch? I was like, it's propaganda. They're trying to recruit young children
to the youth
who like to play video games to get them to murder people in real life.
This is what the kids are doing. So
which was just like a strange thing to have to say out loud. But so
that
what
started with America's Army, right? That was when
there was that game America's Army or whatever that was actually developed with the US Army. That was a weird game. I never really played it. I assume, Adam, you were all over that. You love a military sim.
I never played it, but
no. Okay.
Sorry, I think that's when they first ventured into like we can use games to recruit.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Anyway, so Discord, the service that we are currently using to video chat with one another, it's a video and audio gaming chat. First one's free, Discord. Tweeted something about this little plushy toy, and then the US Army esports and Discord are like sort of tweeting back and forth one another. The US Army esports tweets a Snorlax giant plushy toy. Discord says, quote, "We'll ask the merch store boss lady," I guess if they can produce these in harmony or whatever. And the US Army esports Twitter responds, "Uwu, UWU," and then a love heart, which is basically like a cutesy sort of Japanese gaming thing, like, ooh, like it's super cute sort of thing.
Very macho.
Well, this is the thing. It's like using very much cutesy gaming language to try and like get people involved in the US Army. So one of the number one responses from this guy, Ryan at RBM, who's I think he's a streamer or something, said, "Ooh, might bomb a hospital later. I don't know. I'm so random." And that like that kicked shit.
Let the shitstorm commence.
So basically, what happened, it ended up happening, as Tom mentioned, is that people started getting into these Twitch chats and basically sort of seeing how fast they could get banned, speedrun, by posting a Wikipedia link to US Army war crimes in the channel. And, the use of white phosphorus and, the My Lai massacre and the bombing in that hospital, the Doctors Without Borders hospital in Afghanistan in 2015 and linking all this stuff, and people just like getting banned left and right. But it just like, it's so interesting to me. They would just sort of dive down this weird rabbit hole of like subcultures that I had no idea existed. It's just fucking
I don't know what
bizarre.
They thought was gonna happen. Like
who?
The US Army with a Twitch chat sort of thing, right? Like, I guess maybe they're not as self-aware, but it's like when fucking Bill Cosby's PR people were like, "Hey, let's try and get some positive social media attention and here's some photos of Bill Cosby, meme him," and everyone just made, "Hey, this is what you do after you've been accused of a gazillion amounts of sexual assault." How did they expect that to go any other way?
Well,
I guess the thing is with the Twitch account is that it wasn't. I don't know how heavily the message control people were necessarily monitoring it, because obviously as this was happening, they've got actual military service personnel playing the game and responding as it's happening. which led to a couple of aggressive comments on behalf of the members of the channel.
I don't know,
but
there's
only
no
after the fact did they put out an official response, which seems kind of measured, but it's it's obviously after the fact when the media guys have had a look at it. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. It's really interesting to me that this is not like something. Normally, when the government does something, like has some sort of initiative, like the populace generally sort of like roundly rejects. It sort of rejects it. It goes like, oh well, this is like government authorized fun. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, it's not generally sort of looked on favorably. These kinds of initiatives have never, like to my knowledge, from America or Australia, have never really gotten much sort of prominence. But the thing about this is like this Twitter from the US Army esports channel has 20,000 followers. Like, these guys are actually legitimately like popular in their own right.
Because you got to remember as well with the kind of audience they're targeting, and it is very clever. Like, it's marketing.
It's fucking evil genius.
Really clever. Because the guys who, like me, who play a lot of serious warring dad games, or even Call of Duty, something a bit more casual. There is a fantasization and a what's the word for
fetishization?
Fetishization. Sorry, thank you. Of military culture, military people, military tactics, and that kind of thing. And if you've got an actual Green Beret who's playing Call of Duty, that's really interesting to that particular kind of audience. So it's really clever, and it's almost
evil.
What's what I'm looking for? Not evil,
diabolical.
It's morally it sits. Yeah. Morally, it sits in a weird spot for me.
To me, the closest analogy. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. The only brand that doesn't what?
The only branch of the military, that doesn't have a Twitch or an esports team is the US Marines, who have literally said we don't really think war should be gamified and spread by us. But every other branch, Air Force, Navy,
even Space Force.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. I don't know about Space.
What game does Space Force play? I'll
Space
play
Force
that.
has its own TV show. So.
It was the COD that they the one where they were in space and you have to shoot people.
Yeah, that one was fun. Except that you had to install shaders every time you booted up the fucking game.
Nothing's changed.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I forget. The closest analogy that I can think of is like, like cigarette companies sort of, buying up, a stake in. So I think Philip Morris purchased a large stake in Juul, the vaping company, a few years ago, to sort of, bring their brand into the younger next generation, sort of targeting young consumers, or like vodka cruisers or something like that, where it's like a sweet raspberry drink that you're with vodka in it, that you're specifically targeting towards impressionable teenagers to get them to buy your product before their brains are fully developed. It does sort of strike me as slightly analogous to that. And they're sort of talking to these people. They're, I sort of watched a little bit of a stream and he's talking to the guys and answering comments like, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, you can do that after you go to basic training. Like, it is this new recruitment method that's like very much embedded in young people's culture. And I think the glorification that we've sort of made of war with these kinds of games like Call of Duty is like now feeding in to this sort of recruitment strategy as well. So I used to be like very dubious as a kid. We're like, oh, they're glorifying violence. But like, shut up, mum and dad, you're old. You don't get why Sub-Zero needs to rip this guy's spine out of his head. But maybe they're all right. Maybe it does kind of glorify violence a little bit, and using that as a recruiting tool to send young men off to die, maybe that's a bit morally dubious.
And they've been doing it with movies for years. Remember that Top Gun, after Top Gun was made, the US Navy and Air Force had the most applications. They had a massive spike. Like, it was unheard of after Top Gun came out.
Makes sense.
Everyone wanted to be a fighter pilot. So they've been using, whether it be movies or games, this has been something that's been an active strategy by the US military. And to be fair, probably other countries as well, where they've got locally made productions.
But it does have a whiff.
2 decades.
But because it's military, it does have a whiff of propaganda about it, because it's like, it's not just like, oh, well, like, it's like a fun image thing for the US Army. It's like, no, you're trying to get people excited about war and using these things as a tool for recruiting people to go and fight in war. And it's not this glamorous, fun, exciting thing where you drop from a plane and, call in airstrikes and shoot 5 guys in the head. And like, war is actually really dangerous and has real consequences and isn't sexy or shouldn't be. But like the military has a long history of doing this. I remember there's been like a few films with Marines, which like feature former Marines that were on duty that have received funding from the US government to sort of promote the idea of the military.
Act of Valor, I think, had literal US Navy SEALs in on-screen roles. Transformers, like Michael Bay, pretty much the whole thing is just one big US military advertisement.
Yeah.
They get it for free as well, because it's seen as being in the taxpayers' interest or whatever.
I don't know. It's one thing like with the Bond films where you see him, wearing an Omega watch and driving an Audi. And you go, okay, well, when I make $1 million, I'll buy an Audi, sure. But that's one thing. That's sort of like movie advertising. That sort of native advertising is like, it's one thing.
I really want Heinekens. I don't understand why I just want Heinekens all of a sudden.
Native advertising is like dubious at the best of times, when it's something as benign as purchasing like this brand of toothpaste or this brand of car. But when it starts to become a recruitment tool, I think is where it sort of crosses a line. What do you think, Tom? I mean, you played lots of games growing up.
Oh yeah, definitely. I guess it's pretty weird because like I guess Adam's point earlier about like people who really sort of like enjoy the sort of the military aspects of games and stuff like that. Like, I mean, playing all the Call of Duties as a teenager or whatever, like loving like call sign speak and different tactics and being like impressed by certain like weapons and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'd say there would be something to be said about the demographics in which maybe where you can't kind of approach that sort of imagery or context with sort of a sense of trepidation or like at least understanding of maybe the make believe of it, like to understand that war isn't this. I guess it's a similar conversation people often have with pornography and young people, is being like, this isn't what sex is. Like, these are all actors who have like A, consented beforehand, B, they do this professionally so they don't hurt themselves and stuff like that. Like, you got to understand that this isn't real.
What is performance, Tom?
Oh, performance is the people in airplanes, Adam, doing the safety briefing. Isn't that what we learnt from that lecture?
Everything is performance.
That's what performance is. Everything is airline safety features.
A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C. That's what we learned.
Picking up totally how it works. That everything that is projected in media is a version of reality. It's not reality. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, exactly. And I remember how there's other like more insidious ways that I think that it's sort of been used, particularly in the military front. Because I remember, like, I don't know sort of how corroborated this is, so I'm not sure like how where the information sort of came from. Maybe this was all bullshit, but I thought I remember reading, like, this is like 10, 15 years ago or something, when 24 was on television. And I loved that show. It's problematic as fuck, particularly with its like depiction of like Middle Eastern terrorism.
Yeah, early Homeland has the same problem.
Oh boy. And it's also one of those shows where if everyone had iPhones, the plot wouldn't work in the earlier seasons, which is funny rewatching season 1 of 24, which I love, but if everyone had iPhones, wouldn't work. But anyway, I thought there were sort of rumors of the government encouraging more of Jack Bauer torturing people because when you're seeing Jack Bauer do that hard, like are we 100% certain that this guy is an insurgent or that this is the person? It's like, there's no time, damn it, shoot him in the kneecap, like, where is she, and all that sort of stuff.
Where's the trigger?
And we all sort of go like, oh, no, we saw what he did, like, yeah, that was hardcore and whatever, but it got the bad guys in the end, like, all that sort of stuff, so that maybe when we find out the US government really did that, we'd have that different perspective, I just don't know how concrete an actual dialogue like that from the producers and the government is, but seeing stuff like US Twitch streaming or like US Army involvement in Transformers movies or whatever, like, it's hardly a longbow to draw.
Culture is a massive access point into people's minds. I remember hearing about, I haven't listened to the podcast myself, but I heard it advertised. I just looked it up now. There was a song towards the end of the Cold War called "Wind of Change," which was like a big sort of anti-Cold War song. Which there's been a podcast series made recently where they were saying there's reasonable evidence to think that maybe the CIA actually had a part in like producing this song and was behind. Yeah, it's crazy. Like. And so I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know the full, the full sort of the story behind it. But it's something interesting to think that, like it's not unreasonable to think that the CIA, along with like targeted assassinations and overthrowing democratically elected governments, was also like songwriting and like, like funding Twitch streamers, like. Different departments, obviously.
Well, it's the different department. They're on level 4, whereas the assassinations are on level 6. So, they don't really cross paths, but they're in the same building.
It is definitely a thing that, America is the cultural center of the world. Most of the TV, most of the movies come from America, and they export those values through the culture out to other places. Yeah. And, if it's,
Gangsta rap. Great American, export.
Yeah, it has been. There's a lot of, there's a lot of how my thinking as a young man was shaped was by listening to a bunch of like comedians, listening to Bill Hicks growing up, listening to Richard Pryor, listening to George Carlin and Robin Williams. Listening to these things on a loop, basically, like I was like, oh, I'm allowed to think these things. Like it shaped my thinking as a young man. I can see that very clearly, even down to like particular turns of phrase that I still use. I remember this Bill Hicks gag from like years and years ago, where he's like, if you're in advertising, kill yourself. Seriously, kill yourself. I'm not kidding, kill yourself. If you're in advertising, you should kill yourself. Like, and it just goes on for like minutes and minutes. But like, like that was like a pivotal moment for me as to like what culture can do and therefore how you're allowed to think. And I'm not saying like, that was a good bit or an instructive bit or anything like that. But like, it's obviously you have to watch it for context. Like I'm not doing it justice. But the point is like, my brain as an Australian 14-year-old was altered by like something a comedian on the other side of the world said years ago. Like that's how powerful culture is. So if you think about the young minds that are being shaped to see like, Call of Duty as like that glorification of, going like, and I love these games as much as the next person. They're fun, but I'm also very aware that they're not reality. And my frontal lobe is developed enough that I can understand that it's not the same thing.
As an 18-year-old,
as a 15-year-old, as a 16-year-old, you don't really know. You see these images, and that culture is really instructive as to how your brain develops and how you think. Like, it's something that I don't know. I do think it is sort of morally grey of an area.
Just want to change topics and pivot slightly. Talking about the pervasiveness of culture and what that does. George, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. How important was Kanye West to you growing up as a young man?
I reckon Graduation has got to be one of the strongest hip hop albums of all time. late registration was pretty good as well. I don't necessarily think he should be running for president in 2020, if that's what you're alluding to. I would not. Fortunately, I've not been tasked with having to vote in the American 2020 election. But were I tasked to do such a thing, I would not, in fact, vote for Kanye West or Donald Trump. I would smash that Joe Biden button harder and faster than you can imagine.
So this is possibly the most disturbing thing I've heard this year, apart from coronavirus.
Because we talked about this when he mentioned it
back in like 2016, 2017, whatever it was.
I did actually remember thinking recently, like, oh, lol, remember when Kanye said he was going to... Sorry, say again.
Well, he was obviously like high as shit.
He didn't seem in his right mind. Now, if that was him experiencing like some kind of mania, or if he was on drugs, who knows? But like, he certainly didn't seem like
legit
tuned in.
Yeah.
But yeah, he announced, and I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. And then recently, I was like, oh, it's getting like 6 months to the election. Like, if he was going to run, he should have started like 6 months ago. Like, we'd know something about it by now. But yeah, it turns out Kanye West is in fact running for president in 2020, which doesn't make sense because he said he is.
Well, he said he is, but I don't know. I haven't like kept up with this too much beyond the fact that he said he is, and this one follow-up story where people pointed out he hasn't filed any of the necessary paperwork.
There's paperwork. There's paperwork you have to file by a certain date. You don't just get to go, yo, I'm a run, vote for me, write in Kanye.
I'm dubious that there will actually be an option in the voting machines or ballots or whatever that says Kanye West, and I don't think he's thought this through.
Well, this is the other flip side. Is we're not sure whether Kanye is a crazy person or a genius, and you're talking about the
answer
of culture, George.
Is yes.
Is this just a marketing stunt? Is this just something to get him back into the news cycle?
He does have a new album coming out soon, doesn't he?
He loves getting into the news cycle for dumb shit right before an album drops, so I wouldn't put it past him. But at the same time, he's showed like very public support for Donald Trump. There's lots of pictures of him wearing a MAGA hat. I remember he went to the... Sorry, say again?
Well, he's backflipped on that now.
Saying that he doesn't support Donald Trump?
No, he's saying he doesn't.
Okay, but like you went to the White House and you're photographed with him wearing a red hat saying "Make America Great Again." So...
Yeah. And the crazy conspiracy theory I thought about it is that he's purely doing this so as people will be like, lol, I'll vote for Kanye, and that's one less vote for Biden. Right.
Well, this is the thing, is that if he keeps this act up for a couple more months, even if he's not actually going to do it, what'll happen is, either people will go to the polls and he won't be there and they'll be confused and vote uninformed, or if he does vote, it's just going to pull potential Democratic votes away from the Democratic from Biden.
Is the assumption there that black voters would vote for Kanye West?
How could you vote for Trump, though? Like, if you were...
there's not a plurality of... I think it's less than a quarter of black voters would vote Republican normally. I think with Donald Trump, it's like sub 9% black voters who would vote for Trump. I don't think it's a substantial portion that would be voting for Trump in the first place. But I guess what I'm saying is, just because Kanye is on the ticket, do you really think black people would just vote for him because it's Kanye? Like that, it doesn't seem to me like he really... I don't know what his policies are, but he doesn't address any of their concerns. Like, are they automatically voters
to be clear,
that he'd be pulling away from the Democrats is what I'm saying.
It's not just black voters. I'm talking about like young people, you know, music fans, whatever.
That's the thing, right? Yeah. So I wasn't trying to imply like it was a racial thing. I meant more like that. Yeah, that there'd be people, well, I guess kind of like how Trump sort of was for some people in 2016. Some people like Trump and voted for him. Like there were people I met and spoke to, obviously, who weren't, you know, partaking in the election because we're here in Australia, but people who are kind of being like, I think it's hilarious that he's running. Like, you know, I'd vote for him just to see what had happened, kind of thing. Like, yeah, if they capitalize on the idea of people just being like, Kanye's running for president, vote, and then one less vote for the guy who's running against Trump is effectively a vote for Trump because he's coming from such a strong position, right? Like, you know, we've talked about many times that a president currently like a sitting president is so rarely voted out. So,
something interesting about it, if you didn't already dislike Elon Musk, this might tip you over the edge. He tweeted in support of Kanye West's run for the presidency, saying, quote, "You have my full support." And people
then retract it straight away.
I don't know. Elon Musk is honestly just like
he might have. Yeah.
He's just a troll. He's just trying to get attention.
He might have retracted it straight away. He might have called him a pedo. Like, I don't know. He's Elon Musk. He's nuts.
But he's building stuff that's cool, so we have to like him, right?
No, well, you don't have to like him. You can like the cool stuff. I like the
cool
South
stuff.
Australian battery.
Yeah,
that's a great
That's
idea.
great. Don't
I love
call
the rockets.
Rockets are great.
Metal things, they're great.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
don't-
I'll fancy overcompensating with the space rocket as much as the next guy, but he's a fuckwit.
It's something that people don't seem to realize about Elon Musk is just because you're really good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at everything. You might be so super good at capitalism. Congrats, you won capitalism. You're the best at capitalism. You made several billion dollars. Fantastic. You made an electric car. You started a space company. You're part of PayPal. That's dope. You're really good at capitalism. Not so great on Twitter or being a father or what named his kid after an AR-15 or whatever the fuck that was, but it's pronounced Kyle.
It was a fighter. It was a fighter jet.
Fucking
shut
up.
There was a fighter jet and there was something else. And but you say Kyle.
Just because you're really good at being a billionaire doesn't mean that you're a genius at everything. You're just like a shitty dude on Twitter, and you're not a genius at Twitter. You're just a guy who's very annoying. Like, you can hold both ideas at the same time. Like, yes, if I held Tesla stock, I'd be very stoked on Elon Musk right now. And also...
Isn't it the most valuable company in the world right now?
No, not more than Apple.
Sure.
Apple's the most valuable,
or the biggest spike in value, or something.
Yeah, it might have been the fastest gain or something. Like, he's definitely had like mammoth gains on the stock market through Tesla. But I also know that Amazon, like Jeff Bezos, added another $50 billion to his net wealth over the course of the coronavirus. So, he's still the richest guy in the world.
Tesla is now the most valuable automotive company.
Oh, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I guess that makes sense, in because we've seen in a lot of industries here in Australia as well of like online ordering just skyrocketing for people in the coronavirus. So I'm not overly surprised in that Amazon's doing so well, but it's like 50 more billion to the guy who was like 170 billion worth or whatever. Is he now like into the 200 and something?
He's up to 174 billion.
Oh, now okay, so he was like 120. Before,
like if Elon, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, who's the other billionaire? Like the Sultan of
Putin, Sultan of Brunei,
whatever. If they all got together and they could just like fund world Medicare, do you know what I mean?
They could, and they choose not to.
Adam, Jeff Bezos himself could. There's this. I think I brought this up on the show before. There's a fantastic Twitter account.
Yeah, is it Jeff Bezos?
Has Jeff Bezos decided to end world hunger today?
Yeah.
And every day they tweet, Jeff Bezos has decided not to end world hunger today.
Yeah.
And that's all they do. Because they've got a breakdown. I think they've actually crunched the cost. And they're like, it would cost something like $30 billion a year to end world hunger. And then they compare that to what Jeff Bezos earns in a year. And he earns more than $30 billion a year. We're like, yeah.
Well, Tom, he's also founded a space company, so he's got different priorities.
He can end world hunger on a different world then, I guess. But like, yeah, I think I said this on the show ages ago. I was like, what if we got all the billionaires and we just gave each of them a problem to solve? So instead of like, someone like Jeff Bezos pulling out the argument of, well, why should I fix everything? Like, oh, geez, like I'm the one who has to fix everything, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, fine. Jeff, world hunger. Bill Gates, you're on climate change.
He's on,
just like divvy it out and be like, you could still be billionaires, you can still be rich motherfuckers, but you just have to solve one problem, and you just have to keep funding that one problem, and you can still be a rich person. Like Kim Kardashian or whatever, because actually bringing it back to Kanye, didn't he just recently tweet something out of like, congrats to my baby for becoming a billionaire? And everyone's like, fuck right off. Kanye.
Remember 2 albums ago when they were complaining that they were $50 million in debt? And I was like, they'll be fine.
Yeah, totally fine.
They're obviously fine.
Kim,
they do an album.
You can fund Medicare. Great.
No, they didn't do an album about it, but he mentioned it in one of his songs like 2 albums ago. That he's like such a good guy. Like even when we're $50 million in debt, we're still like giving people money, sort of thing. And I was like, yeah, I've no sympathy whatsoever. You'll be fine. Like you're all millionaires and billionaires. It'll be fine.
It is funny how that sort of stuff plays out, right? Like like Macklemore's albums or whatever being like first one. Whoa, holy crap, we've got our first album and we're so indie and not beholden to anyone. Like, this is great. Second album being like, whoa, that first album went off and we're famous now. Being famous is a little interesting. Like, here's the changes. And then third album that he did or whatever is like, fuck, I wish I could go back to before I was famous. Like, come on, Macklemore.
But yeah, you're right. There is some billionaires have a conscience and are dealing with, all over world issues. Like Bill Gates is a perfect example. The Gates Foundation has like he's dumped billions of dollars of his personal wealth into that foundation, and that foundation has actually made investments in like various like medical delivery companies, which have had like substantial returns over time as well for the foundation. So. Yeah, and like I think Warren Buffett is planning on donating like 99+% of his net worth to charitable causes after he dies. So there are billionaires out there like that, but yeah, Jeff Bezos is not one of them. This is why we don't trust individual people to make decisions for the world. We have large multilateral organizations like the UN funded by governments, which is funded by taxpayer dollars. So we take the money from Jeff Bezos. We don't allow him to have 174 billion. Maybe you just get to have 50 billion. We'll handle the rest of it. And then we can, solve all the problems of the world. And then it's not up to Jeff Bezos having an epiphany and, donating some tax sheltered money to a, thing of his choice.
Although I rather liked, I think, I can't remember if were we talking about this before the show? I brought up Hassan Minhaj at some point earlier today. I can't remember if that was on air because everything's a blur in Lockdown 2.0.
What is time?
But like he interviewed someone on his show just talking about like what to do about billionaires and all that sort of stuff, and using Batman as an analogy.
Yes.
I really like.
I always said this.
Yeah, the guy was like. The guy said, no, Batman's an amazing example. Let me work with that. Like, yeah, sure. Batman, he suits up, he fights bad guys, and he attacks crime. But it's all crime in Gotham that is caused by the huge wealth inequality that the Wayne Foundation basically creates.
Yeah.
Like, Wayne Enterprises creates such a financial inequality in Gotham. Like, so he's causing his own problem.
Yeah.
So rather than high-fiving Batman for being like, yeah, dealing with crime, how about we go, hey, Bruce Wayne, stop fucking up Gotham?
Yeah,
it's a great point.
And in the Christopher Nolan movies, they allude to like some charitable foundations or something. It sounds sort of prosaic. Yeah. But yeah, like legit, Batman is in an alley beating up a guy who... like stole a woman's purse or whatever, but like his brand of rapacious capitalism is exactly the thing that causes a systematic inequality in the city that he lives in. So it's like you could, in theory, just donate the money and fix all of the poverty, which would solve the crime.
Dollars to fix all the problems rather than investing in like high-tech bespoke ninja tools.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tank, but it flies. Okay, how many millions of dollars did you spend on that, Bruce? Couldn't you have just funded the orphanage instead? Go fuck yourself.
Which you'd think he, an orphan, would probably be able to empathize with.
You'd think he'd resonate with that a little bit more.
But flying tanks are pretty cool, though. So
don't get me wrong. Also, big fan of the flying tank.
Yeah, if he did that, there'd be no Batman, and I love Batman. So
yeah, it would just be Bill Gates' life story, if that was the case. Yeah. Made a lot of money and then donated it.
Yeah. There is hardcore, gritty DC comic about a billionaire figuring out what charities to send his money to.
It's less visually compelling, I will admit that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There is a doco on Netflix about Bill Gates and his foundation, how he's trying to solve sanitization in countries, which is actually, he's pretty close to it, apparently.
Like the waterless toilets and stuff. Yeah.
Which is really fascinating, but also...
His foundation has done more to address malaria than anyone. Like, he is single-handedly responsible with the stroke of his pen for saving more lives historically than anyone. Like, just with his action on malaria. Like, it kills so many people. It's so deadly. It affects so many people. And for some reason, people are saying, like, oh, he's making money off vaccines. She's got fucking coronavirus is all Bill Gates' fault. Like, he is, like, on a financial basis, one of the best people in the world, despite being a real dick when he was running Microsoft. Like,
they still can't solve Internet Explorer.
I just got a new Edge browser, which was forcibly installed onto my... I was like, I didn't ask for this. What is this? They're like, can I X out of it? And they're like, no, you have to... You have to get the Edge browser. Do you want to move all your bookmarks? I was like, no. And they're like, too bad, it's done.
Yep.
Here are your bookmarks. I don't want to use this. What is this?
I just pressed escape a lot and then got out of it.
Get out! Get out!
It was pretty much like a brainwashing of internet browsers.
On that note, speaking of brainwashing, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the social media that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and motherfucking TikTok, and YouTube, obviously, to see these videos. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and the Chinese hacked TikTok at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And you can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
Make sure you follow us all down to Amazon's headquarters where we'll... No, I can't say any of that about Jeff Bezos. Thanks for listening, guys. We love you, and we will see you next week. I wasn't going to suggest we eat the rich. I don't know why you would ask.
Oh, I was going to say, like, what? Were you afraid he was going to have you killed or something?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's what TikTok is for.
He could afford it.
He literally could.
Actually, then again, is affording, like, having someone killed, like, I guess, variable depending on who it is? Because
sure,
maybe, like, even I could afford having you killed. Like, guess we're nobody, right?
Thanks for listening, guys. We love you. We'll see you next week.
He's worth 10 grand.